what was the point where you realized, oh, I see some light at the end of the tunnel? This is actually working. We talk about death by 1,000 cuts here at Ramsey. Dave says, I thought if I could just make it to Oprah or 60 Minutes, that was going to be the thing. And there wasn't a singular thing. But if you could say, hey, this was my turning point where I realized this could work.
Yeah. Well, there was a big moment where I learned one of the most powerful lessons as it pertains to authenticity. And it was also the same moment where I realized, oh my gosh, the momentum is shifting. And maybe, just maybe, like, that still small voice is right. Like, I keep listening to it and I keep getting no proof around me. And it's years and so it was this moment where after 3 years of hearing no, we got one shot on QVC, which is, QVC is a live television channel. In the U.S., they're broadcast to 100 million homes. And I found out, George, that we got one shot and this 10-minute window to either hit their sales goal or not come back. Now, at the time, we were selling 2 to 3 orders a day out of our website, out of our office, which was our living room, packing boxes, driving to the post office, getting them out every day, and just trying to stay alive. And this was a couple of years in, and I learned we would have to hit the QVC sales goal, we would have to sell over 6,000 units of our product in a 10-minute window, which was a few $100,000 of product. And I also learned the offer was consignment. So your whole team and everything that Ramsey stands for would say, do not take this because and by the way, no entrepreneur should take a purchase order they can't afford to lose. And at this point, it was a consignment offer, which meant we had to somehow pay for, manufacture, ship in over 6,000 units of product. And then we weren't paid for it unless we were just going to be paid for whatever sold in that 10-minute window. And whatever didn't sell, we'd have to take back. And so normally you should never do this. And at this point, we were sort of like, do that or go out of business because we had no money left. And we applied for SBA loans and the 23rd bank said yes, which was in California Bank and Trust. And they gave us a SBA loan to cover just the amount of inventory for this one shot on QVC. Wow. So everything was on the line. And we hired third-party consultants that are awesome, and they help a lot of people. They teach you like how to sell your products in stores or how to present and produce your 10-minute spot on air. And here's the problem: is every single one of them, and they're awesome, and they wanted me to win, but they told me the same thing. They said, if you want a shot at actually hitting these numbers, which is so hard to do, very few people do it on QVC. If you want a shot, here's what you need to do. You need to use this type of model to show your product, which was women with perfect skin, no one that looked like me with bright red rosacea. And I said to them, okay, I get that's how it's always been done, but that's not authentic. Like to me, my authentic why, I want to take my makeup off on national television, show my bright red rosacea and prove the product works. And I would tell them, what if I put, women in their 70s and 80s and models of all ages and skin tones and maybe some who have acne and all the things. And they were mortified at this idea. And so they were like, listen, we're giving you the best advice that we have. And here's what you need to do. So I flew out to QVC with a week early, and I sat in this parking lot, staring at their front door in my car, in a rental car, an economy rental car, which I could barely afford. And I sat there praying and crying for a week because I knew in my gut what the right thing to do was. But then I was like, but I don't want to go bankrupt. And I kept having self-doubt and thoughts well, what if I try it their way and then make some money and then I try it my way? I had all these thoughts, and I had this moment in the car, in that rental car, and I knew this lesson. And I made the decision to live it out. But this idea that while authenticity alone doesn't automatically guarantee success, inauthenticity guarantees failure. I knew that, and I'd seen it play out in company after company after company when they start getting distracted from their true authentic mission and who their customers truly are. So I sat there kind of knowing that. I imagined who our customers were. I imagined a single woman in Nebraska, for whatever reason, folding laundry and was way too busy to remember she mattered. and that she was beautiful. And I had this moment in the car where I realized, like, if she turns on her television, sees me on there, blesses me with 5 seconds of her time, like, I'd rather have her see me showing women that look like her and calling them beautiful and meaning it. Even if she buys nothing, I'd rather do that than like sell a whole bunch of product and stand for nothing. And so I went in there live for the show, and the 10-minute clock was on the floor. You know how studios are set up, right? There was the cameras, there was this 10-minute clock. And I then learned, George, that I'm not even guaranteed the 10 minutes. If I'm like a minute or two into the live presentation selling and I'm not hitting numbers, you get your time cut. Like, it'll go from like, you think you have 8 minutes left, boom, you have 1 minute left.
No
and
pressure.
You're like, oh no. Because you can do the math in your head of how much money you just lost. And anyhow, we went live and the clock started, and I was freaking out, to be honest, and shaking like a leaf and all the things, not because I was worried about TV. I felt like the weight of the whole business was in that moment. And I remember the moment my bright red, bare face rosacea came up on national television, and I went over to models, all ages and shapes and sizes and skin tones and skin challenges. And we had about a minute left in the presentation, and I didn't know like the numbers, but I knew I wasn't cut yet. So I thought that was good. And then we had about a minute, or actually a couple of seconds left, when they said, the host says, the deep shade's almost gone, the tan shade's almost sold out. And then it was, it was right at the 10-minute mark, this giant sold out sign that I had prayed about, like envisioned. This giant sold out sign came up across the screen. I started crying on national television, and my husband, they cut from me and went to Dyson Vacuum or something like that. And my husband came rushing through the double doors, and I was like crying, and I'm like, real women have spoken. And he's like, we're not going bankrupt. And that one airing turned into 5 that year, 101 the next year, and then eventually 250 live shows a year.
Wow.
On QVC. So we built the biggest beauty brand in QVC's history. And it is actually right now at this moment. And I share that because, and I think this is so important for anyone in a season of setback that feels like setback or like things aren't going their way in their business. But it was 3 years of QVC not only saying no, but like, you're not the right fit for us or our customers. And sometimes we hear those rejections or those painful no's, or we put a big launch out in the world and 5 people buy it. And we think, oh, but I wanted 100 people to buy it, and maybe I don't have what it takes. And I just think, the whole journey of getting still and hearing that still small voice and trusting it, and really looking and changing your relationship with rejection. Like, I am not afraid of rejection at all. And I've built a resiliency toward rejection that has changed my entire life. And I think that that's really important. When rejection happens to me, like even to this day, George, even it happens to us all the time, right? It could be in the form of like, oh, you're not invited to coffee with that group of friends, or, oh, rejection comes in so many forms. And I really, I pray about it, and I look at rejection as God's protection. And there's so many ways it has been. The investor I mentioned to you who said women won't buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight, who I thought was going to be my, saving grace at the time. 6 years later, when we sold to L'Oreal, I heard from him for the first time in 6 years. And he said, congratulations, I was wrong. And I learned it would have been the most successful investment in his firm's history.
Wow.
But also what's crazy is I was so desperate at the time when I wanted him to invest. I probably would have given away so much of the company for nothing. And because he didn't believe in me then, 6 years later when we sold to L'Oreal, we were still the largest shareholders of the whole company. So I was like, rejection is God's protection. Like, sometimes it doesn't make sense at the time and we think it's unfair and it's hurtful, but I feel like when we keep that perspective, it gives us a resiliency as well that becomes another tool in our toolbox to keep going and actually compete with the potential of who we're called to be. And I think that is so important.